To some breaking news now, the FBI arresting a Virginia man earlier this month after finding what prosecutors describe as the largest seizure of homemade explosives in Bureau history.
This morning, the Justice Department says it's foiled a major coordinated terrorist plot.
These bombs were to blow up at the same time on midnight.
This story is a fictional dramatization inspired by real security concerns and for storytelling purposes only. Enough firepower to level 3 city blocks. That's what federal agents found beneath a frozen industrial park on the outskirts of Minneapolis, Minnesota. But this wasn't a drug warehouse. This wasn't a money laundering front. This was a military-grade arsenal hidden in American soil, assembled by a network that had been planning an attack for months. And the map they left behind showed exactly where they intended to strike. Schools, bridges, government building, all marked in red, all scheduled for tomorrow. At exactly 3:42 a.m. on a bitter January morning, the temperature hovering at -8 degrees, over 200 federal agents assembled in silence around a nondescript industrial complex in the Cedar Riverside district of Minneapolis. FBI tactical units, Army National Guard counterterrorism specialists, ATF weapons experts, DHS threat assessment teams. They formed a perimeter around a single structure, a dull gray metal warehouse listed on city records as North Star Cold Storage LLC. But the thermal imaging drones circling overhead told a different story. Heat signatures, multiple bodies moving inside, and something else. A faint electronic pulse emanating from beneath the concrete floor. This wasn't a storage facility, it was a bunker. The operation commander, FBI special agent named Marcus Holloway, stood in the mobile command center parked 3 blocks away. On the screen in front of him, the live feeds from helmet cameras and overhead drones painted a picture that made his blood run cold. The warehouse had reinforced steel doors, the windows were blacked out with industrial sheeting, and the motion sensors they'd planted on the exterior walls the night before had detected tripwires running along the loading dock. This wasn't just fortified, it was booby-trapped. Holloway's voice crackled through the radio net. "All units hold position. We breach on my mark. Explosive entry, full suppression. Expect resistance." The men inside weren't amateurs. Intelligence reports suggested they were part of the same network tied to the New Horizon Relief Foundation takedown 2 weeks earlier. The same network that had funneled $250 million through a fake nonprofit to arm militants overseas. But this cell was different. They hadn't sent the weapons abroad. They'd kept them here, and they were preparing to use them. At 3:51 a.m., the breach team moved into position. 6 operators in black tactical gear, each carrying a ballistic shield and a breaching tool. They planted shaped charges on the hinges of the main loading dock door. The countdown started. 3, 2, 1. The explosion ripped through the frozen air like thunder. The door folded inward with a screech of torn metal. Smoke billowed out. Flashbangs followed, detonating inside with blinding white light and concussive force designed to disorient anyone waiting on the other side. The first team stormed through the smoke. Their helmet lights cut through the haze, and what they saw stopped them mid-stride. Rows of industrial workstations, each one equipped with 3D printers, not the cheap desktop kind, high-end resin printers capable of producing precision components. And scattered across the tables were dozens of small black polymer parts, Glock switches, devices that convert semi-automatic pistols into fully automatic weapons, illegal under federal law. But this wasn't a few switches for street dealers. This was a factory. Agents counted over 400 completed units stacked in labeled bins, and the printers were still running. But that was just the beginning. Along the back wall, they found military-style uniforms hanging on racks. Not knockoffs, real tactical gear, plate carriers with ballistic inserts, Kevlar helmets, night vision mounts, combat boots in every size, and stamped on each uniform was a patch, a black flag with white Arabic script. The same symbol found in propaganda videos circulated by extremist groups overseas. This wasn't cosplay, this was preparation. One agent moved toward the far corner of the warehouse, where a steel cabinet sat against the wall. He pulled it open. Inside were rows of encrypted radios, military-grade encrypted radios, the kind used by special operations units to communicate without interception. Each one was pre-programmed to a specific frequency, each one labeled with a code name. Eagle 1, Hawk 2, Viper 3. This was a command network, a coordinated cell structure designed for simultaneous strikes. Then, beneath the cabinet, one of the operators noticed something. The floor didn't sound right. He tapped it with his boot. Hollow. He called for a pry bar. They wedged it under the edge of a steel plate and pulled. And the plate lifted, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. The smell hit them immediately. Oil, gunpowder, and something else. the acrid scent of electronics running hot. Holloway's voice came through the radio. "All units, we have a subsurface structure. Proceed with caution." 4 agents descended the stairs, weapons raised, lights sweeping the corridor. The walls were reinforced concrete, the ceiling lined with ventilation ducts and electrical conduits. This wasn't a basement. This was an engineered bunker. At the bottom of the staircase, they found a steel door with a biometric scanner. It had been left open. Whoever was down here had left in a hurry, or they were waiting. The agents moved through the door into a long corridor. The hum of servers filled the air. On the left side, a row of computer terminals glowed in the darkness. Each screen displayed live camera feed, exterior views of the warehouse, street corners around the city, public transit hubs. Whoever built this place had been watching, monitoring, waiting for the right moment. At the end of the corridor, they found another door. This one was open, and beyond it was the planning room. The walls were covered with maps, detailed street maps of Minneapolis, satellite imagery, building blueprints, and over every map, red circles, target markers. The first map showed the Hennepin County Government Center. The second showed the light rail transit hub at U.S. Bank Stadium. The third showed Franklin Middle School. The fourth showed the Interstate 35W bridge. Each circle was annotated with handwritten notes in Arabic and English. In high-foot traffic, 7 to 9 a.m. Security rotation changes at 6 p.m. Structural weak point, support column B7. This wasn't theoretical. This was operational planning. And in the center of the room, pinned to a corkboard, was a timeline, a handwritten schedule. Phase 1, 6 hours. Phase 2, 8:30 hours. Phase 3, 1200 hours. Today's date was written at the top. Tomorrow. They were planning to execute tomorrow. One of the agents stepped closer to the map of the bridge. His voice was quiet but firm. They weren't just planning an attack. They were planning to bring down infrastructure. This is coordinated. This is war. Holloway, watching the feed from the command center, gave the order. Clear the rest of the structure. Find the source. Find the weapons. The team moved deeper. Another corridor, another steel door. Now, this one was locked. Heavy, industrial grade. The breaching specialist stepped forward, placed a thermal lance on the lock, and triggered it. The lock melted through in seconds. The door swung open, and what lay beyond made every agent in that room freeze. The armory. A cavernous underground chamber, easily 60 feet long, the ceiling supported by steel beams, and lining both walls, stacked floor to ceiling, were wooden crates, military shipping crates, stenciled with faded serial numbers and foreign markings. The agents moved forward slowly. One of them pulled a crowbar from his belt and pried open the nearest crate. The wooden lid cracked, straw packing materials spilled out, and beneath it, gleaming in the flashlight beam, was an RPG-7 launcher, Soviet era. Still functional, still deadly. They opened another crate. Rocket-propelled grenades, warheads, 6 of them, enough to destroy armored vehicles or punch through reinforced walls. Another crate, AK-pattern rifles, not the cheap semi-auto versions sold at gun shows, fully automatic, select fire, military issue, dozens of them. Another crate, fragmentation grenades, trip mines, claymore directional charges, but the worst discovery was in the back corner. A larger crate, reinforced with metal strapping. The breaching specialist cut the straps and pried it open. Inside, cradled in foam padding, were 2 FIM-92 Stinger missiles, shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, designed to take down helicopters and low-flying aircraft. American-made, likely stolen or diverted from military stockpiles years ago. And sitting beside them, an instruction manual, in English, highlighted, annotated, practiced. The scale of it was staggering. The agents began counting. 14 RPG launchers, over 100 rifle platforms, 50 kilograms of high explosives, 2 surface-to-air missiles, enough ammunition to sustain a prolonged firefight, enough firepower to turn a city block into a war zone. This wasn't a criminal enterprise. This was a military operation hidden in plain sight, and it had been assembled piece by piece over months, maybe years, right under the noses of federal authorities. Holloway's voice came through the radio, steady but laced with controlled anger. Secure everything. We need forensics, serial traces, and a full manifest, and find whoever was running this operation, now. As if on cue, one of the agents noticed a faint light coming from a side room off the main armory. He signaled to his team. They moved in formation. Now weapons up, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The room was small, a command center. Monitors lined one wall, displaying the same camera feeds from upstairs. A desk sat in the center, cluttered with maps, notes, and a laptop still glowing with an active screen. And sitting behind the desk, calmly with his hands folded in front of him, was a man. He was in his early 40s, clean-shaven, wearing tactical pants and a black long-sleeve shirt. No uniform, no insignia, but everything about his posture screamed military training. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and when the agent shouted for him to show his hands, he didn't flinch. He didn't move. He just stared. One of the agents stepped forward. "Hands on your head, now!" The man smiled. Not a nervous smile, not a frightened smile. Though a smile that said he knew exactly what he was doing. Slowly, he raised his hands and placed them behind his head. "You're too late," he said in perfect, unaccented English. "You stopped one cell. There are others." The agents moved in fast, pulling him from the chair, forcing him to the ground, zip-tying his wrists behind his back. They hauled him to his feet. His name, according to the documents they found on the desk, was Ibrahim Sharif Hassan, but the profile was chilling. Former Somali National Army, trained in guerrilla tactics, arrived in the U.S. on a refugee visa 8 years ago, dropped off the radar 3 years later. No employment records, no tax filings. He had vanished into the network, and he had been building this arsenal ever since. As they dragged him up the stairs and out into the frozen Minneapolis dawn, Hassan turned his head and looked directly at one of the agents. "You think this is over?" he said quietly. "This is just the beginning." By 6:30 a.m., the perimeter was flooded with floodlights, federal vehicles, and media helicopters circling overhead. The warehouse was sealed. Forensic teams in hazmat suits were cataloging every weapon, every map, every piece of evidence. The laptop was seized. The servers were being copied. The encrypted radios were being analyzed. And Hassan was on his way to a secure federal facility, facing charges that would put him away for life. Conspiracy to commit terrorism, possession of weapons of mass destruction, conspiracy to murder federal officers. The list went on. But the haunting part wasn't what they found. And it was what they didn't find. Intelligence analysts reviewing the seized documents discovered references to 3 other cells. Minneapolis North, St. Cloud, Duluth. Code names for locations across Minnesota. Each one with a different target. Each one with a different timeline. And each one potentially armed and waiting for orders that would never come. Or maybe already activated. In the days following the raid, federal teams fanned out across the state. They hit addresses tied to the network. They interviewed associates. They traced supply chains. But the investigation revealed something deeply unsettling. The weapons in that bunker didn't come from a single source. They were pieced together from gun shows, private sales, black market smugglers, and stolen military shipments over years. No single red flag. No single transaction large enough to trigger federal oversight. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and the network that built it was patient, disciplined, invisible. The story is a warning, a reminder that the most dangerous threats are not always announced with loud rhetoric or public declarations. Sometimes they are assembled in silence, in warehouses, in basements, in places where no one thinks to look. The men who built that bunker didn't wear uniform. They didn't march in the streets. They worked jobs. They blended in. They waited. Power doesn't always come from size or noise. Sometimes it comes from patience and precision. And the scariest part? Hassan was right. This was just one cell. The question isn't whether there are more. The question is where they are, and whether we'll find them before they're ready. If you're still watching this, and you believe stories like this need to be told so people stay aware, comment "protect" below, share this video. Make sure people understand that vigilance isn't paranoia, it's survival. And remember, this is a fictional dramatization. But the lessons it carries are real, because somewhere, right now, someone else is building something, waiting, planning, and hoping the world looks the other way. Don't let them.